Thank you. Commander Smith, national officers, delegates, guests, and all American Legion family members. I am Sean Davis, the detachment commander for the Sons of the American Legion and the convention chairperson. And on behalf of Squadron 117 in Thief River Falls, in the Red River Valley, and on behalf of Squadron 109 in two harbors along the north shore of the big lake they call Gitche Gumee, and on behalf of Squadron 595 in La Crescent in the Mississippi River Valley, and on behalf of our newest squadron, Squadron 64 in Slayton in the southwestern grassland prairie, and on behalf of all the other squadrons and members located throughout the detachment and state, and our total membership, which, at last report, stood at 11,429 members, I bring you greetings to the 47th Annual Sons of the American Legion Convention here in Minneapolis. We hope you enjoy your stay, spend some money, and have some fun.
And now for a few greetings from some very special guests. First, please welcome two famous Minnesotans, Ole and Lena, to welcome you to the great state of Minnesota.
Look at all these people.
Yeah, you betcha, Lena. Lots of people.
Holy smokes, are we going to have enough tater tot hot dish here?
Oofta, Lena. Or loot the fisk for all these people.
Well, Ole, over there I seen a sign. It says Hawaii.
Oofta, Lena. Isn't that where they grow them dear pineapples?
Yeah, you betcha, Ole.
Well, Lena, do you think they brought some along so we can stretch the tater tot hot dish?
Ole, really? Oh, pineapples don't go in tater tot hot dish. Oh, I hear, Ole, there's a Wisconsin person here, too.
Yeah, Lena?
Well, do you think maybe she has some of that extra cheese along to stretch the tater tot hot dish?
No, Lena. Oofta, she looks pretty lean. I'm not thinking she has any extra to spare.
Really? Well, Ole, I hear all these people throughout in Minnesota for the American Legion Auxiliary and Family Convention.
Yeah? Yeah, Lena, tell me more.
Well, Ole, the American Legion family does so much for the veterans, their active duty, deployed, and the families and the children and youth and their communities. So, Ole, I'm thinking these people are pretty nice.
Yeah? Yeah, Lena, what are you saying?
Well, Ole, I'm thinking that they will understand if we can't make the tater tot hot dish stretch this far.
Oofta, Lena, do you think so?
Oh, you betcha, Ole. They look like some pretty nice people, but holy smokes, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, Lena. Let's give them a nice Minnesota wave and welcome them all to Minnesota.
Okay.
Welcome to Minnesota.
Thank you. When I'm not dressed like this, I'm Donna Ahrens, the past Minnesota Department President, and Ole, my sidekick here, is Mary Caparis, last year's Department Membership Chairman. So seriously, President Diane, all other dignitaries, delegates, alternates, and guests, we welcome you. This is how Membership Mary and I rolled in Minnesota this last year. We so enjoyed our presidential tour with President Diane. And we just tried diligently to get the word out of what we do in Minnesota with a fun-loving group to attract others to join us. We, of course, are very dedicated to the American Legion family missions. However, we feel one attracts more with honey than with vinegar. So please do not hesitate to ask anyone from Minnesota to help you throughout your stay here with any questions, issues, or concerns. And thank you for being here and all you do for the American Legion Auxiliary and our families.
Move forward. I couldn't believe she began those comments with, "so seriously." Okay. A big thank you to Ole and Lena and our Minnesota Department President, Donna Ahrens.
Our next guest is a Vietnam-era veteran of the United States Air Force. He's a retired rural mail carrier and a member of American Legion Post 322 in Camporee, Minnesota. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 2017-2018 past Department Commander of Minnesota, Michael J. Schaefer.
Good afternoon, and welcome, American Legion family, to the great state of Minnesota. We're the land of 10,000 lakes, some really great fishing, world-class mosquitoes, which we sent further east, but we won't mention the state, and road construction, which unfortunately is one of our 2 seasons in Minnesota. Are you having a great convention so far? All right, that's what we hoped for. The Doughboys returning home from the Great War in 1919 met for their very first convention here in Minneapolis. The original site is just a few blocks from here. They were high-spirited, highly motivated, and ready to create the best veterans organizations the world had seen. In the course of 3 days, they formed the bedrock policy of the American Legion, that being the 4 pillars upon which we as an organization stand yet today. They approved a constitution, including the preamble for God and country. They created a watchdog role for the federal agencies that were charged with aiding veterans. They approved a motto for God and country and 100% Americanism. They resolved to improve education in the United States with higher pay and more professional standards for teachers. They sought a cash bonus for veterans. They created the American Legion Auxiliary, and we know how valuable they are to us. And they marched 8 abreast, thousands strong, down Nicollet Avenue here in Minneapolis. In 1919, they marched, as the governor said, on November the 11th, and there was just a little bit of a snowstorm that day, which may well be the reason why Indianapolis and not Minneapolis got the nod to be the permanent home of our organization. It's not too late to reconsider. Over the years, the hopes and dreams of those young men and women who gathered here a century ago have come to pass. They did create the best veteran service organization the world has seen. Our history of the American Legion is a long one, a proud one, a nation-changing history. And I'm here to say we're just getting started. You can still feel the spirit of the doughboy in this hall. Minnesota is indeed proud and very pleased to welcome you to the 100th Annual Convention. We hope that your stay here is a good one, that you meet an awful lot of Minnesota nice. I want to thank you. God bless all of you. And God bless the American Legion as we go forward for our next 100 years. Thank you.
And I think these guys are all together from Minnesota.
That would be the most correct statement I've heard this morning. I'm Mike Schaefer, Delegation Chairman of the Department of Minnesota, and with me, in no small number, is probably the rest of the state of Minnesota. This is the American Legion family in Minnesota, and this is what we do. Last year, we turned in a check for $200,000. And Commander, I'm here to tell you today we blew that away. Join me, Commander. Commander, we've turned in a check, $251,000.
For nearly 100 years, the men and women of the American Legion have been making differences. They've made differences in countless communities. They've made differences through individual obligation to their states, the nation, and around the world. Differences in the lives of millions. Impact like that can only be forged by dedication, sacrifice, and compassion. It's impossible to list everything the American Legion has contributed to the nation over the last century, yet we can reflect on accomplishments of the past as a lens to the future. To understand this past, which conceived a vision that has proven timeless, we can look through the eyes of a hero.
It seems so long ago, but how well I remember. We knew it as the Great War, the war to end all wars. And I was there, just another American soldier back in 1917.
Over there, send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums drumming everywhere.
So prepare,
Say a prayer, send the word, we'll be coming over there, we'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't be back till it's over there. Hurry right away, no delay, go today.
make your daddy glad to have had such a lad.
Tell your sweetheart not to whine, to be glad her boy's in line. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't be back till it's over there.
Over there.
Order! Halt! About face! Forward! Halt! Left, right, left! Detail! Halt!
That's a bully song. Always has been. It takes me back to a time long ago when I was just a young businessman making my way in the world. But I knew when the guns of war began blazing in Europe that sooner or later America would have to go over there. So in 1915, I helped organize a citizens' military training camp in upstate New York, a little place called Plattsburgh, just in case we had to step up. Now, why did we do this? Well, to answer that, I'd have to tell you a little bit about my father and some of his friends, like Major General Leonard Wood and other prominent figures. My father and his friends believed that America had a responsibility to promote justice, freedom, and democracy at home and around the world. They believed in the morality of strength, and that all Americans have a responsibility as citizens. Now, young men like myself, and women too, wanted to make my father and his friends proud and glad. My father was Theodore Roosevelt, Rough Rider, Colonel, 26th President of the United States. You may have heard of him. He's that rather fierce-looking, bespectacled gentleman on Mount Rushmore, positioned just a little behind some of our other great presidents. Now, it's not like him to be so retiring. But my father had a lot of respect for his predecessors, those who led this nation through its first century. He also believed in performance above prestige, and he raised me and my siblings to believe the same. My father led from the front, and he taught us to do the same. Sometimes to do that, you have to think a little bigger than life, bigger than Mount Rushmore. You have to love and embrace the strenuous life. He was a pretty tough act to follow, especially when you share the same name as him. But I did what he taught us all to do, to carve out a place in history, to put performance above prestige, to be responsible and always do what's best for the good of the whole country, not just for yourself. I did my best to live up to his expectations. I guess I could have done a lot worse.
Mademoiselle from Armentières. Mademoiselle from Armentières. Mademoiselle from Armentières. She hasn't been kissed for 40 years.
Yeah, I went over there. So did all of my brothers. The youngest, Quentin, he went over there and never made it back. He was shot down in France just 4 months before the armistice that ended the war. I saw my share of it over there. The Battle of Camporee with the 1st Division. Got gassed in Soissons, took a bullet in the leg, had a nasty limp forever after that. But nothing was worse than waiting for supplies that never came. I got tired of it and paid for new combat boots for all of my men out of my own pocket. That's just one of the times over there when I realized that America needed someone over here fighting for a well-equipped military. Like everyone else, I was mighty glad when it ended. We won the war, but I lost what was left of my youth in those years. I lost my brother, and soon after the war, I lost my father. But I never lost the spirit he put in my heart. And the unflinching pride and patriotism among all of us doughboys who answered the call, that was permanent. No matter whether you were a drafted private from the woods and hollers or an officer with degrees from Harvard, we shared the common bond of military service.
Life is a book that we study. Some of its leaves bring us sight. There it was written, my body, that we must part, you and I. Nights are long since you went away. I think about you all through the day. My body, nobody quite so true. Miss your voice, the touch of your hand. Just long to know that you understand. My body, your body misses you.
Now I know I don't have to teach you the meaning of the common bond. That unbreakable tie that unites us as veterans for our entire lives. In war and in peace, we know the meaning of the bond. And comradeship in the service is only one step away from citizenship in the community. After the war, we thought, wouldn't it be grand if we could get our comrades together to keep serving as civilians, to maintain the values that held us together in the darkest hours. Together we could work to prevent another war, or to prepare ourselves and others if it should happen again. Together we could fight in Washington to ensure that veterans and their families were treated fairly by the government that sent them off to fight. Together we could do our best to ensure a square deal for America's youth and children, no matter their circumstances. Now, to get this idea moving, we didn't have a moment to waste. The men and women still stuck in France would be returning home very soon. So, with the support of General Pershing, we held our first organizational meetings just a few months after the armistice. We met in January, we met in February, and then, wouldn't you know it, I got orders to ship out just before the big one, the Paris Caucus in March of 1919. Now, me being there didn't really matter, because the American Legion was never meant to be about any one person. We made one rule early: check your rank at the door. It didn't matter where you went to school or if you went at all, black or white, rich or poor, male or female. We all shared the common bond. And that was the beginning of our American Legion.
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the Pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring.
That was 99 years ago, and we've been going strong ever since, staying true to the founding principles of our Constitution's preamble. For God and country, we associate ourselves for the following purposes: to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, to maintain law and order, to foster and perpetuate a 100% Americanism, to preserve the memories and incidents of our association in the Great Wars, to inculcate a sense of individual obligation to the community, state, and nation, to combat the autocracy of both the classes and the masses, to make right the master of might, to promote peace and goodwill on earth, to safeguard and transmit to posterity the principles of justice, freedom, and democracy, to consecrate and sanctify our comradeship by our devotion to mutual helpfulness.
From every mountainside, let freedom ring. America, America, America.
This, my friends, is what we were when we began, and this is what we have remained for 99 years.
This is my country, land of my birth. This is my country, grandest on earth. I pledge thee my allegiance, America the bold. For this is my country to have and to hold.
In May that first year, we had our St. Louis caucus to iron out our Constitution, pick a convention city, and to make our name official, the American Legion. The first 8 months, we signed up over 685,000 new Legionnaires. Our first national convention was held right here in Minneapolis. Veterans from across the country poured in to take on issues we learned from the war. A better funded and trained military, compassionate care for our wounded comrades, American patriotism, and support for our young people, our future. Now, it seemed to us back then that priorities like these would remain important for years to come. And you know, we were right. They are still just as important today, maybe even more. Now, in 1921, the American Legion helped create the U.S. Veterans Bureau. That evolved into the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs 9 years later. From day one, we began what would become a perpetual crusade to ensure adequate medical care for our wounded and disabled comrades, even when their wounds were invisible to the eye. We gave America its original flag code. We got jobs for hundreds of thousands of unemployed veterans. We came to the rescue when floods, tornadoes, and fires left towns in ruins and families with nothing to eat. The true heart and soul of the American Legion, its source of its strength and longevity, quickly became the local post. It was there at home that all of our programs and resolutions originated, where all of the Legion's successes are born. From support for the Boy Scouts of America to the leadership of American Legion Baseball, the local post has always answered the call. In 1935, American Legion Boys State got started in Illinois, and a few years later came Boys Nation. Oh, these were no ordinary summer camps. They were all about good citizenship, responsibility, and the obligation we share to participate in a system built on justice, freedom, and democracy. Soon we started National High School Oratorical Contest, not only to teach our young people good speaking, but to show them where their right to speak freely came from in the first place. Across the nation, we consecrate and sanctify our comradeship by our mutual devotion, by our devotion to mutual helpfulness. This simple phrase means many things, and it has led to a century of success. From the world-changing impact of the GI Bill to the individual family that gets an American Legion grant to rebuild their lives after a hurricane, that kind of success doesn't happen without a belief that performance matters more than prestige, and that through the common bond of military service, no matter where or when you serve, almost anything is possible.
Ballin'!
This is the Army, Mr. Jones. No private rooms or telephones. You had your breakfast in bed before, but you won't have it there anymore. This is the Army, Mr. Green. We like the barracks nice and clean. You had a housemaid to clean your floor, but she won't help you out anymore.
In 1941, I re-entered the Army. I must admit I was no spring chicken, but I was fairly certain I could still ruffle a few feathers. 8 months later came Pearl Harbor. The American Legion's argument for preparedness, which to some people was just militarism, suddenly made a whole lot of sense. I saw action in North Africa and Italy, and I was finally able to persuade the top brass to let me join in the first wave on D-Day. When we came ashore on Utah Beach, I knew Hitler's Germany didn't stand a chance against us. This time, we came prepared.
You're in the Army now, you're not behind the plow. You'll never get rich by digging a ditch. You're in the Army now, but she won't help you out. You'll have to do without. She won't help you out anymore.
What a country this has been and is. This land of ours, a place where men and women still swear to give their last full measure of devotion for an idea, the idea of America, and belief in the American veteran. Our nation's greatest legislative accomplishment, the GI Bill of Rights, was born in the minds of legionnaires, American veterans, not politicians or bureaucrats. And no one could have imagined the impact that it would have on the world. It changed the way our nation treated disabled veterans. It sent millions to college. Hundreds of thousands of businesses were capitalized. Tens of millions of homes were financed. And in time to come, this nation would not need to draft a single soldier for more than 45 years and counting, because the GI Bill was incentive enough to give this nation an all-volunteer force. That is a legacy that the American Legion can always be proud of, and a mission that is sure to continue for generations yet to serve. It was right here in Minneapolis, my friends, where our great organization began, where a vision was inspired by a desire to make America strong, both in times of war and times of peace, for the good of all. That vision built the American Legion, first century legacy.
America, America, God shed his grace on me and crowned my good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
a focus led by a new generation of veterans, including, I'm delighted to say, my very own grandson, Theodore Roosevelt IV.
Onward with eyes are gleaming, onward with eyes are gleaming, and freedom's banner streaming, forward march our country's lead.
Son, it's good to see you.
Great. Hail, keep the glory waving, on land and sea, and preserve democracy. Sons of glory, sons of glory, hail, our heroes hail. Staunch and steady, always ready for our cause. The American Legion's call, hear the call, hear the call.
We in this room do not forget those who served and those who waited for their return home. Those few who knew valor and those many who knew fear. Those who survived battle and those who did not. We remember. It is a duty that war places on all of us to hold sacred the sacrifices made by our parents, friends, sons, and daughters. All of you in this room know, yes, our veterans fought for country and for honor, but mostly in the field, they fought for one another. Theodore Roosevelt Jr. came home from World War I battlefields, and he remembered well his brothers in arms. He could not place a period on his service in that war, a period that might leave the men who returned home without comfort and aid. He knew that their service demanded more of all of us. It demanded that we remember our veterans and their families with concrete action. Concrete action that does not falter, that does not waver, that is not subject to the whims of politics, that belongs to neither party and to no ambition other than memory and duty. And that, I am very proud to say, is heart and soul the American Legion, now entering its second tour of duty, its second 100 years. Across our country, there are American Legion posts and volunteers, your neighbors and mine, coming together to meet the needs of this community. Where there are still local newspapers, there are stories. Post 64 sends 4 local residents to State Trooper Training Program. Salisbury to host American Legion Baseball State Championship. American Legion hosts sock drive for combat troops. We are intimately woven into the fabric of this nation through rural and urban landscapes, wherever our veterans are found. And we come together for larger enterprises as well. The American Legion has given us the VA healthcare system, youth programs to teach and inspire future leaders, recognition and treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder, and illnesses caused by Agent Orange, a massive support network for needy families and children. Most importantly, we give ourselves this, our association, our comradeship, our devotion to one another. This is the practice of democracy, the free association of the like-minded to advance a shared cause. And there are few causes as great as ours. Please join me in a salute to the World War I doughboys and doughgirls who came home from war and remembered their comrades in arms. They remembered them so well that they have shielded, comforted, and lifted up more generations than they ever knew. We are the children whom many of these soldiers never met. We are their legacy. Let's honor that together.